far as the rent is concerned, Dave, now you think that the government should be in a position where they could assist the tenants and the landlord, where it's called a rent-free period is given to the tenant, and the tenant will be able to stand back on his leg in a month or 2 months' time. And at the same time, I think the government should also do something and help the new business or the tenants to get stock levels from their suppliers. So I think if the government reopens and goes to level 3 or maybe level 2, where businesses are allowed to be open, and definitely the tenants will not have that sort of financial status to buy the stock. So I think the government should be able to help the suppliers with some sort of assistance where they could supply their materials, their stock, to their consumers, where they're able to just come back on their feet in a month or 2 months' time. You think that could be possible to do that?
Yeah, Richard, the government can only do so much. And if you think about this, a loan has to be paid. A grant doesn't have to be paid. So if you borrow money from the government, and even if it's interest-free, which I encourage it to be interest-free, not even a 1% interest, given to certain businesses for them to start operating again, that money has to be paid back. And there must be flexibility given to these particular businesses. I recall when level 3 was announced, and 48 hours after that, a level 4 was announced. Now, in that 2 days, so many businesses, especially perishable, selling perishable items like the local butcher and the local grocer, your vegetables and such, they lost thousands or hundreds of thousands of stock because the butcher had all this stock in his freezer and he couldn't open his shop at lockdown 4. He was stuck. Obviously, it will be a accounting loss, but still there was massive amounts of food wasted. And in this situation now, you can see the businesses are afraid to start back straight away at level 3 or level 2, because the last thing you want is when we start level 3, and after perhaps a week or 2, there is a spike of cases in COVID-19, and then we go back to level 4, and that's going to be absolutely devastating for the industry. So I'm advocating some tax reliefs for businesses. I'm advocating the reduction of GST in New Zealand, or at least zero rate GST for essential items like bread, and vegetables, and meat, and flour. That's something we can look at, because, and this is only temporary, Richard. This is not something permanent. When times are down, when we are down, we look for the government for help, and they have come in. They've spent $10 billion, but is that enough? What about the landlords? What about the tenants? So it's an ongoing process. I'm sure they have the advisors to advise them, but I think more needs to be done.
Now, before we finish this segment, Dave, I just want to ask you one more thing.